Well, it's Tuesday, and that means another TwoSun, since I have quite a few of these things here. This one, as you could probably tell by the thumbnail and the title of the video, is a TS306. This is also known as the Reaper. And this is one of the original runs, and I'll get to basically what might have changed there in a little bit here. But, yes, this thing has a bit of a... I wouldn't really call it a thumb opening hole, but you can reverse flick it, and of course you got the flipper here, which kind of has a little area notched out, so it's not actually sticking out too far past that handle. So that's nice for keeping it quite nice and tidy in the pocket. You don't really have crazy flipper tab just sticking out sideways from it. As you can see, this guy is not a small beast. We got a 3.66 inch blade. It's about 93 millimeters for those of y'all who use probably the more sensible measuring system out there. And we can see we have carbon fiber, I'm not going to call them inlays, maybe underlays or something like that. Yeah, this thing is a little bit interesting on the inside, but we'll get to that near the end of the video if you're interested. So yes, this one is the original run. That's in 14C28N, as we can see here, and quite a high polish on this thing. It does have a bit of a satin, but it seems like they may have polished it a bit afterwards, or just used a really, really fine belt for it. We have kind of an interesting sort of thing going on here. We have an upswept kind of grind, so starting basically right around here, it's a full flat grind. So I'll go ahead and call it that, but yeah, it's halfway between that and a saber grind. That's alright. As far as lockbar access, though, we do have interesting milling going on here, not just the simple scallops, but you don't really have any extra lockbar access. For some people, myself included, who generally don't have a problem shoving their fat digits in between there, that doesn't bother me nearly as much, especially if it's actually scalloped out, so I don't have any problems deploying that. And I absolutely love having a frame lock where the lock relief is internal. Just makes those lines look just a little bit cleaner on the outside, so that's nice there. Pocket clip here. We got Mazwan's standard ball sort of affair, which not exactly my absolute favorite for the adding the clamping pressure there, because it's usually a little bit difficult to get in and out of the pocket. But this one doesn't seem to be as bad as the other ones. It probably has to do with the fact that we have a decent amount of flex to it, because it's a little bit longer than some other clips out there. Alright, so yeah, as I was saying earlier, I don't really want to consider that to be a thumb stud. It's a little bit too buried in there. But it does have that same shape. Well, if you don't screw it up, that is. You can reverse flick it. But it does have a similar shape to the TS129. Let's see if I can locate this one rather easily. There we go. Yeah, so very similar as far as that thumb hole sort of thing. It's a little larger, but that one you can easily get the thumb out there on it, whereas this one you cannot. Another one that Mazwan ends up doing. This one came out a little bit earlier, the TS270. This one obviously does a really, really fantastic job of flipping that blade out there with the thumb, but this one doesn't. But you know what? That's okay, because you know, the reverse flick, as long as you're ready for it and you're at least somewhat familiar with the knife, that works out pretty darn well, and the flipper tab does as well. So, as of the recording of this video a couple of days ago, I did see that they have, well, no, never mind. They have come out a little while ago in this particular case. These, a new batch has been made long after I ended up picking this guy up, and they're using M398 steel on these guys, which, yeah, if you're not familiar, it's supposed to be kind of a little bit of an upgrade over M390. They've changed some characteristics around just a little bit. The blade edge retention is supposed to be just a touch higher, but it's supposed to add a fair bit of toughness in there. But because of that, the stainless nature of it isn't quite as much as M390, but M390 is way up there anyway, so you're all sorts of good on there. They have done one other knife in M398, but it was, of course, just this little slip joint here. You can see it does have a different badge to it. Yeah, M398. So it's nice to see them do that in a little bit larger knife. I don't know if maybe it was just kind of done because this seemed to be kind of an interesting design, and they had just a little bit left over, so they figured they would do another run with that instead. Not quite sure. Either way, this thing is belly all the way. And as we can see here, using kind of my little ruler thing here, the tip is basically right at that pivot, if not just a slight, just a little bit of an upturn from that's straight from the pivot there. That does give it some pretty powerful cutting characteristics. This thing does have a decent grind to it, but not as slicey as some others. This one, I guess, is done a little bit more for a harder use. And I can certainly see that. This thing feels really capable of doing those harder kind of cuts. Let's see. I don't want that. I mean, we got cardboard. Yeah, this just sails through it. But, of course, I have already put my own edge on there, sharpened to 17 degrees per side. But, yeah, I mean, absolutely effortless kind of going through there. But if you do end up having multiple layers of cardboard, or like the really thick boy stuff that you get from like appliances and stuff like that, just about any kind of cutting tool outside of a box cutter blade is going to have a little bit of trouble trying to get through there. And it's just the physics of the fact that this can't be a single line without it just snapping and all that sort of stuff. All that being said, none of it actually needed to be said. But I said it, and I'm going to move on. So, yes, this thing cuts like a beast. The ergonomics on this thing are actually quite nice. The jimping is done really well. Not acutely sharp, but definitely grabs the thumb. And my hand really feels like it locks in there. And, of course, we have this flat part here, which is interesting and nice to have on a knife that has a traditional flipper on there, where you can sneak up if you really want to do that for some of those cuts. Probably doing something like that might be helpful, I guess, if maybe you're doing some feather sticking or something like that. But of course, you probably wouldn't want to have a V-edge on that blade if you're trying to do that, and that just makes it much more difficult. This thing is fairly thick in the hand and the pocket. Not an absolute unit, but it's 0.56 of an inch. Sorry, 0.58 of an inch. That ends up being 14.7 millimeters for y'all in the metric countries over there. And yeah, we have a little bit of a sharpening choil there. And it is nice to see that it does end before the blade happens, but I think it probably could be deeper. Maybe not necessarily longer, but having it a little bit deeper would help just a little bit with some extra sharpenings as it goes. And yeah, this thing, even though it's titanium and carbon fiber, it weighs a lot. We got 5.45 ounces, or 154.5 grams. So yes, this is a chunky boy. But that also probably makes sense with kind of how the grind is on the blade and just kind of the intentions for it. The blade stock thickness on this guy is 3.85 millimeters. So not the absolute thickest that they do. That's usually 4 millimeters. So it's at least a little bit thinner than that. But I don't know. TwoSun always seems to go a little thicker than I think is probably necessary. Like if they had a standard of 3.6 or 3.5 or something like that, rather than 3.8 to 4, I think that would probably help out just a little bit for most EDC kind of tasks and in that nature. But hey, it is what it is. The pocket clip really doesn't bother me in the hand. I can feel it though. It doesn't disappear, so don't really have any delusions about that. But yeah, it's not really offering me much of a hotspot, so that works out quite well. Let's see, I could probably do some size comparisons here. Let's go ahead and do some Benchmades. So there's the 940, and well, there's the bug out, the 535. That's the number for it. Let's go with some Spydercos then. We got the PM2. And this is a large guy, so I'll go ahead and put it up against the Endura. Yeah, fairly similar, but, obviously this is much thinner. Oh, let's see. What else do I got? I got, well, the Rat number 1. That seems like a pretty good comparison for it overall. So, yes, there is that. I do like this thing quite a bit. However, I will say that there are a couple of models in which I've felt compelled when they've upgraded the steel or something like that to pick up another one. And this one in particular, I'm still happy with it in 14C28N. I don't really need to go out and spend another, I don't know, probably $150 or something like that, or maybe a little bit more, to get the absolute same knife with nothing changed about it, but with it having M398 steel. M398 is kind of neat, and hopefully they do a good job with treating it these days. It's not a steel that a whole lot of companies end up using, even though it's been out for quite some time. M390 just dominates the market. It's probably a little bit more affordable than M398 because just the economics of scale. So many companies and a lot more Chinese companies are purchasing it for putting together the knives and stuff like that. So I suppose that probably has something to do with it. Either way, I mean, this guy is it's a brute of a knife, but it definitely fits in the pocket nice. So I appreciate that. I do wish that possibly if we did have a little bit of a show side cutout there, might be able to actually deploy that with the thumb, and that would also give you a little bit of lockbar access. So that might be kind of an interesting thing. I'm sure somebody could probably mod that. I'm not necessarily interested in taking my Dremel and hacking into titanium personally, but I guess it's there. Yeah, the action on this thing, pretty good. It's a wiggle shut to start, but I mean, once you do that, yeah, it's pretty close to a drop shut. Not the absolute floaty kind of feel drop shut guillotine sort of thing that you get with some very, very new Kaisers. But in some ways, I do actually find that just a little bit more, a little easier to deal with, because usually the way that I end up closing a frame lock is I'll have the blade turned upward. I'll move that over to the side and then get over the detent, which is right here, quite early, by the way. So that's nice to see. And then I will get my fingers out of the way and kind of tilt that down. Whereas, let's see. Well, the one I have here is the Kaiser Begleiter 2, but the Towser K and a whole bunch of others have that same sort of thing. Where, yeah, it's so free floaty that I can't easily do that. I have to literally have it faced on its side to be able to do that. And, God forbid you end up doing that. Luckily, that has the little notch area there that'll catch that, but not all knives do. Yeah, this thing is, it's an interesting beast. It might not be my absolute favorite from Mazwan Mokhtar, but it's definitely up there. I do like this thing a little bit more than the Beluga and a couple other newer ones that have been introduced. But yeah, it's quite the capable large bruiser of a blade. But all right, that's basically the outside and cutting it and all those dimensions and stuff like that. So that's what you came by for. Then hey, I appreciate you for stopping by. We're gonna take a look on the inside of this thing, and it's a little different in here than most other TwoSuns. So all right, let's start out with the pocket clip, which is pretty normal. Kind of a pain in the butt to get out if I remember on this particular model. It is, you know, situated down into that titanium frame there. I will go ahead and pull out my spudger here. Safe Queen collectors might want to look away. There we are. Now, I wanted to get that off of there because I did need to loosen up that Chicago screw. But we've got that done now, so. There's the next one. And, of course, we got the pivot here. We got that pivot collar as well. That's titanium, in case you want to anodize those a different color, just to give it a little bit of a pop. And, yeah, taking a look, it looks like it's an inlay, just completely inverted. For this guy here. It is interesting that we have little tiny screws going into, not through the titanium there. But yeah, it just makes things really, really interesting. It also makes the carbon fiber really difficult to actually get out there, because we do have those 3 screws there. But underneath that, if I do recall correctly, there's adhesive on there to help it stick, so it's pretty stubbornly in there and wedged in with a lot of tight tolerances, so you're not going to really get a whole lot of ingress of liquids in there, but you'll probably get, you know, hand and other kind of things going on in there. And I guess the other last thing here, we got their standard bearings, and we have a stop pin that's mounted inside the blade there. Yeah. So, for the most part, fairly simple construction that TwoSun is known for, but yes, these carbon fiber inlay, onlay, underlay, whatever the hell you want to call them. It's done just a little bit differently on this one than their other models. But still, if you want to take it apart just like I did for any kind of maintenance and cleaning and all that sort of good stuff, super easy to do that. Come on, you backspacer. There we are. Alright, we got the D-shaped pivot there that attaches on the lockbar side, with the flat side facing back towards the pocket clip, as they usually are. Welcome to wrist cam as I go ahead and tighten up the pivot on this guy. There we are. Come on, buddy. There we are. And then, yeah, because of that kind of notch you have in the pocket clip there, you do kind of have to reseat that as you're putting it in. But that does, as you saw me with earlier, make it a little bit difficult to actually pull that thing apart. But once you get there, it's fine. In this particular case, it's spinning around on me just a little bit because they don't D-shape their Chicago screws. Hell, almost nobody does. I've seen it on a couple of Spideycos, but even then, not all of them. So that's just kind of an interesting aside, I suppose. There we go. Takes just a little bit more to tighten that up. Yep, super interesting design here. We don't have any free-floating pins, so even if something wasn't done absolutely with the utmost of manufacturing tolerances in there, it's not going to jiggle on you. I do know that Bokers seem to do that a little bit more than others, but no, whatever. That's neither here nor there. But yes, that is the TS306 Reaper from Mazwan Mokhtar. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and you can have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo. Subscribe.